For most people, Facebook is a place where they can share photos or catch up with long-lost friends. However, the social media site may have a darker side. In a new study called The Dark Side of Facebook, Swedish researchers found that status updates can indicate certain personality traits, including psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism. To conduct the study, Danilo Garcia and Sverker Sikstrom reviewed the status updates of over 300 Americans in combination with personality tests. Participants were asked to answer a personality survey, then submit a number of Facebook status updates, which were analyzed with an algorithm that measured the significance of the words. In their abstract, researchers noted that the status updates of the people whose traits were identified as psychopathic or narcissistic had more odd or negative status updates, with them often making reference to pornography, prostitution, butchers, and decapitation. I was joined earlier by Sverker Sikstrom, a professor in cognitive psychology at Lund University in Sweden, who was one of the researchers of the study. He first filled us in on the meaning of the word psychopathy.
Psychopathy is a lack of empathy. They're thrill-seeking. They don't feel so much neuroticism. They're like seeking excitement, and they don't think so much about other people's emotions.
Now, as I understand it, the study took a look at both a personality survey and the kinds of words used in Facebook status message updates. Can you explain what exactly you were looking for in both the survey and those status updates to determine if the person has psychopathic tendencies?
Yeah, so we looked at people's status updates on Facebook. In order to participate, they had to do at least 15 updates. And then they also did a number of personality tests, 5. Those were like the dark triads: psychoticism, neuroticism, and narcissism. And also we looked at extroversion and neuroticism. And then we were interested in whether we can look at the status updates and to determine whether what type of personality they had. So we used this statistical method looking at the meaning of the status updates to predict the personality traits. And what we found was that the personality traits that was best predicted was psychotism.
Very interesting. Well, can you define the quote-unquote dark triad you studied and found manifested in Facebook status updates?
Yeah. So these are 3 traits that often go together, and therefore we talk about them as the dark triad, like 3 traits. And that's psychotism, as I defined earlier. And they also have a narcissism. Narcissism is like self-glorifying. I'm the best guy in the world, basically. And Machiavellianism is like this cold, manipulative traits trying to control other people.
And one of them, you mentioned them, narcissism. I'm interested to know, what kinds of things did you look at in order to determine that?
So this is like a completely computational method. So we look at statistical relationship between what the meaning of words and these personality traits. So we didn't make any judgment ourselves. It was this algorithm that produced these results. And what we found is that some aspects are more important than other things. Like if you have high on psychotism, then you tend to have very odd status updates, like strange, like weird, what's happening here, kind of. And there also tends to be rather like negative, like using swear words, like what's going on kind of statements.
Okay, and how about, for example, Machiavellian? Can you talk a little bit about how that one was examined particularly?
Yeah, so that would be like taking control of other people. Like we don't really have to have these expensive board meetings. I can rather like take these decisions myself. It's kind of like you want to take control over other people and like gain power, and you are not so emotional about how they think and feel.
Very interesting. Now, considering the participants of the study actually knew that they were being evaluated, how were you able to make sure that their responses were natural and not tainted in any way?
Well, the Facebook updates were like from the previous Facebook history, so they just had to paste in like last 15 updates or so, so that they couldn't really manipulate at all. And before that, they made these personality tests, so so they wasn't like aware about exactly how the relationship between these two data were.
And some people looking at the results of this study are going to say that the researchers looked a little too deeply into the status updates, that you can't diagnose a person based on their digital profile. What do you make of that argument?
Well, I think that's basically the interesting finding in this data, that we actually can do that. It's statistically significant results, and we basically looked at some of, like trained our model on some of the data, and then checked it on the other data, and we found that we actually could do this.
And Sverker, what's the potential for this research going forward? What kind of implications could this have?
So this research seems to indicate that we can predict at least some of the traits, or the dark traits of personality on Facebook updates. So potentially we could develop like warning signs of, oh, this guy that I'm talking to could possibly have some tendencies to be psychotics. Or you can also look at like this particular state, even if the person isn't like psychotic at all, at least this statement that I'm writing like that could be interpreted in that way. And so this could be like helping us to easily get to know other people on the net, and also try to make yourself communicate who you really are by giving feedback to yourself on what you're writing.
I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that there could be some kind of psychology basis in their Facebook status message updates. But tell me, why did your team choose Facebook specifically rather than, for example, another social networking site like Twitter?
There wasn't any like really a clear argument. We just wanted to have good data, and this was very convenient for us. There are functions where you can like take all the status updates. So it was mainly a convenience sample. We would be very interested to do this on Twitter as well in the future.
That was Sverker Sikström, a professor in cognitive psychology at Lund University in Sweden.